Hi everybody, welcome back to the Gallowgateshots YouTube channel and welcome back to another match preview, our last match preview before the World Cup break. This one, we're going to be looking at the home fixture against Chelsea, where hopefully we can make it 10 games undefeated before we jet off to Qatar. I'm Scott, I'm your host for this one, and I am joined by Daryl and Harry. Daryl, how are you this evening?
Hi, Canny. After last night's game, at the time of recording, the less we say about that, the better. I think, apart from Nick Pope, there you go. That'll do.
That will do indeed. Yeah, Harry, you were at the game as well last night, I believe. It wasn't on telly, but I don't think I missed anything.
No, it was absolutely abysmal. You missed absolutely out. It was just horrendous, absolutely horrendous, and I still haven't fully de-stressed from the penalties. I just refused to watch. I couldn't. Pull me right out. What's left of it anyway?
It was nice to break. Was it a 10-year or a 10-game duct of losing penalties in a row? Something like that. I remember reading before.
Like that,
but anyway,
yeah.
If you want more on the game against Palace in the EFL Cup, Decca and Chris recorded a match reaction this morning, and that went out today for everybody. So once you finished watching this one, go back and watch that one and relive that game in all of its glory, if you can even call it that. Before we get started, as always, the Gallowgateshots match preview is brought to you by Magpin badges. Magpin are the go-to site for high-quality, unofficial enamel pin badges of Newcastle players, legends, and retro kits. For more information on Magpin, you can visit their website at magpinbadges.bigcartel.com. Right, so as I said at the beginning of this one, Newcastle are hosting Chelsea on a Saturday evening late kickoff. It's a 5:30 kickoff, I believe. Is it on Sky for you lot? I think it is, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Sky game will be an evening, so that'll be nice. At least you'll be able to watch it this time, as opposed to, like I say, that Carabao Cup game, which wasn't broadcast on any channel anywhere. And even Sky Sports News couldn't be bothered to show any highlights because I don't think there was many.
No, there weren't any.
There weren't any, yeah. I don't know how the NUFC.com come up with 10 minutes worth of highlights. They must have just shown the penalty shootout with the walk-ups as well. Anyway, going back to Chelsea, they currently sit 7th in the league. They haven't had the best of starts for their standards. I mean, any other team would rip your hand off for 7th. Currently on 21 points. They were knocked out of the EFL Cup last night, speaking of that competition, by Manchester City. So, two of the so-called top six going head-to-head. But they've also had a couple of defeats recently as well. Noticeably, Arsenal beat them 1-0 and then Brighton turned them over 4-1. The last 5, they've got 1 win, 2 draws and 2 defeats. I believe their draws were to Man U, and I can't remember the other one. I did have it, but I didn't write it down. Daryl, we'll come to you first. Obviously, being a Newcastle fan at the moment, we're all full of confidence. But given how Chelsea are playing, you must have that little bit extra to go into this game than you would normally do when we play Chelsea.
Yes and no. I mean, you've got to try and eliminate the EFL Cup game out of your minds before you even thinking about this game on Saturday coming. And you're right to say that we probably could have a little bit of an extra step in spring in our step even going into the game. But again, these are the sorts of games where you just have that there's a little bit of thinking in my mind, and that's probably because it's been ingrained in us for the last 15 years because of what we've been through. But there's just that small little thing where we'll have to take it carefully, we'll have to be measured, and we'll have to be on the ball to get the 3 points out of it. And I'm saying this, and I still think we probably will get a win because that stadium's going to be bouncing on Saturday night, and everybody's going to be out for a day session, aren't they? Really, the place will be absolutely jumping, and see what War Flags can come up with as a send off to the lads who are going off to the World Cup in Qatar. Yeah. And again, I think it's going to be one of them. But like you say, you can't take it for granted. I've said it the last few times I've been on the preview where I just think that the game will be tough. But I think we'll be all right, and I think we'll come out of it with the 3 points.
Excellent. Yeah, we'll come to our predictions at the end, but little spoiler alert there for what Daryl thinks. It's going to be a funny one because, like I said, I think when we went into the Spurs game, we were maybe a little bit too negative and a too kind of, oh, we probably will get beaten, all that. And to be fair, last time when we played Chelsea, although it was at Stamford Bridge, if I remember rightly, we did give them a bit of a game, and it was a VAR decision that went against us in the end to deny us the point. Chelsea have improved in terms of personnel over the summer, but they might not necessarily have the full force given the injuries. We'll come to them in just a minute. But Harry, are you as confident as maybe as we should be or shouldn't be going into this Chelsea fixture?
I'm a bit iffy on it, to be honest. I think no matter what a team's form's been, it can always change. And I don't think, Chelsea are a good side with great players and a great manager. He maybe hasn't started the way he wanted to. It hasn't really gone as well from as it did at Brighton, especially also getting beat by Brighton, I think 4-1 or something it was.
Yeah, it was 4-1.
I think as soon as they start clicking with Graham Potter in charge, there really could be a force to be reckoned with. It just depends when that is. And I think maybe the poor format they've been on is a bit too close to this game. So I am optimistic. I really am. Not for an absolute trouncing of Chelsea, but I do think we'll play pretty well. But you've always got in the back of your mind, like Daryl was saying, it sits with you no matter who you play. It's like, we could still get beat. I've had season ticket for 10 years or something, and it's been Ashley in charge pretty much the majority of the time. So me going through the turnstiles, it always kind of, and then you kind of remember who's in charge now and the manager and things like that. So confidence is higher than it would have been if we played Chelsea 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's a weird one with Chelsea. Like you mentioned, they got a change in personnel. They brought in Graham Potter for Thomas Tuchel, who, whatever your opinions of that, maybe he should or shouldn't have been sacked in the first place. But they replaced him well, I believe. I think they've got a good manager on the hands, like you said. But they haven't seemed to have gotten that new manager bounce. Very similar to us. We didn't get a new manager bounce when we brought in Eddie Howe. So maybe it's a thing with English managers that you don't get a new manager bounce until 6-7 games in when you bring in an English manager at the top level. Chelsea have good players, but they don't seem to have a good team. They don't seem to be all pulling in the right direction. They don't seem to be playing for each other. There's a very, from what I've seen from the outside in, and obviously not watching them every week, you kind of get the opinion that Chelsea are full of names, but they're not. They haven't got an identity, which I think once they find that, and I think Graham Potter will bring that out in them, they're probably going to be an unstoppable force again. I mentioned a little bit about the injuries. If we look at those, obviously the big ones, N'Golo Kante, Chilwell, James is out, Fofana, and Chukwuemeka. They're all first team starters. They've got a long list, and there's a couple of others on that list as well. Daryl, just hearing some of those names that aren't going to be included in the game, does that help with your confidence levels at all?
Yeah, I think it does, Scott. They like you've just said, they're big players for that team. And the other thing about Chelsea at the minute is not only is it a team full of names, but there's a lot of inconsistencies across that 11 that they're putting out at the minute. I mean, you wouldn't have expected Raheem Sterling to go there and just be like off. He's just off at the minute. He's struggling to find any sort of real form, and he's not the only one in that squad with that issue. And again, it gives us that bit of hope and a bit of optimism going into that. And they're very much a team that's in transition, and that's probably down to them adjusting to Graham Potter as much as it is the other way around, with Graham Potter adjusting to having a team full of star players for the first time in his career, you could argue. And I think that he'll probably need the World Cup break more than other teams will. The likes of your Chelsea's, and maybe even just as another example, they're probably even your Aston Villas. They'll need this break, and Nottingham Forest is another one straight away. These are the types of teams that actually will need a World Cup break so they can get themselves and regroup and get themselves focused and put together ready for the second half of the season.
Yeah, I think the one thing Chelsea have going against them with that in mind is that they've got, I think, 20 players going to the World Cup. So, I mean, if you've got a 25-man squad, you've only got 5 left and 7 players are injured. So they've got an entire squad's worth of men going to be out for the entire World Cup. So, yeah, they probably do need that for the players that are left to help start that bonding session. But, Harry, with that many players going away, do they potentially also have one eye on the World Cup and maybe won't give 100% at the weekend? I know players are professional, and I know we never like to think that they do that, but, you know, players will probably not go in for tackles that they probably would do in other circumstances with one eye on, hang on a minute, I could go to a World Cup. And, you know, for some of the players, I've got a chance of winning a World Cup. You know, I could scratch this game off, not give me all, and then go and win a World Cup with my country.
Yeah, absolutely. I did think that yesterday, actually, when Trippier came on. He lunged in for a sliding tackle very early on after coming on. And I remember thinking, like, well, wait, fair enough, you're brave. Like, I was thinking, like, when you've got kind of people like, I mean, like Bruno, for example, I don't think he would, just because of what we are as a team now. But when you got maybe people whose first World Cup it is, or first World Cup when they feel like they're the top of their career, it must play on the mind slightly. It has to, because, I mean, obviously you got Reece James in the squad, who I think we all know would have started ahead of Trippier if he wasn't injured at the World Cup. And they're probably looking at him thinking, "Oh, I don't want that to be me. I don't want that to be me." And I do think it'll play on the minds. Maybe, probably won't be noticeable, to be honest. I don't think it will be noticeable in a Premier League team in a game. I don't think it will be noticeable, but I do think it will play on the minds slightly. But just quickly about Reece James as well. I'm sure he scored 2 against us last time we played them at home. So I am delighted that he's injured. Not for the World Cup, but I'm delighted that he's injured.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I'm not saying that, you know, we will see it, but it's more of a will it potentially affect them to a point where, you know, even if it's a 2, 3, 4, 5% difference at this level of the game, that's a huge differential to have. And when we've only got, I think it's 6 or 7 players in total going to the World Cup, that could work on our favour. Not saying it will, but there's a chance that could be playing in mind, especially when it's the last game. Daryl, you mentioned about Chelsea trying to get on that run. Could this be a bad time for Chelsea if they got a win and then they've got this break? Like, is that a bad time to kind of break your duct and go, okay, now we've got our win, we need to go on this momentum. The momentum is instantly shattered by this break. And on the flip of that as well, for us, is a defeat maybe it's not the worst thing in the world because we've got the break and we can rebuild and regroup a lot better if we do, you know, God forbid, end up losing this game.
Yeah, well, it you know, the position that would put Chelsea in would be quite frustrating, as you say. I mean, if it was out, if we were in that position, I would hate it. I would absolutely hate it, to the fact that we could get this little monkey off our back and get that first win for a while or whatever, and then you think, oh well, no, we're in a break for 5 or 6 weeks now, so we're knackered really. And in terms of us, I mean, the big argument for me with us is, and it's out there in the wide world, is, does this World Cup come at a bad time for us? Now, we are now in a position where we can say that no matter what happens on Saturday, that we'll be in 4th place. It will be in the top 4 for Christmas, which is, as we all agree, is an absolute miracle compared to where we were at the start of the season. And none of us expected it. None of us would have predicted it even.
Well, Roger did, so we'll give him that.
Okay, yeah, fair enough, Rog. Yeah, I'll give you that one. But, you know, so a defeat probably wouldn't be the end of the world. Much like I thought last night when it looked like it could have gone either way. It was like, fair enough. You know, I mean, I know as much as it's a cup and whatnot, but there's another opportunity domestically in terms of a cup in January to come in. But last night it would have been like they'd just crack on. You know, put it to one side, forget about it, and let's go on Saturday. But, you know, it's one of those things, and I think it's going to be all right for us. We'll be fine. And, you know, win, lose or draw on Saturday, you know, we can go into the break happy, but my optimism's at the point where I think we'll get a result.
Yeah, just one last thing on Chelsea. Obviously, we've named a few of the players that are injured. There are obviously a whole host of players who are still available. You mentioned the likes of Raheem Sterling, They've got players who can hurt you. One of the big ones who is 50-50 for returning from an injury is Jorginho. And I think with Kante out, they need him to pull the strings in that kind of centre of midfield. He can pretty much define a game for Chelsea. He's the one who can be either right, okay, we're going to win this, we're going to attack, or we're going to sit back, we're going to defend, or whatever it is. So if he comes back, obviously he's going to be a bit rusty. I don't know how long he's been out for, but I think it's been a couple of weeks now. Harry, obviously, Chelsea having the likes of Jorginho, like Sterling, like Aubameyang, and others. They're names that, you should be mindful of. But did Newcastle go into this with any fear towards any of those players?
No, I don't think we've had any fear all season. I think you've got your players like Aubameyang, who, in my opinion, is just there for the pay packet. It's how it seems. It's how it all came across, even in like the PR stuff and when he first signed, it all just seemed a little bit off and a bit of a weird move. But I don't think you can have any fear. I know like we've been speaking about Eddie Howe, but if you listen to the High Performance podcast, he was like, that's the last thing you want within a team is fear. You want to project fear on the players. You want to have fear in yourself. Just get over it kind of thing. I mean, our players probably know now that they're actually half decent. And I love that. I absolutely love that. There's no kind of doubt. I mean, look at Almiron. I know we're going to keep saying about Almiron. He must be the player that everyone's named the most within the Newcastle fan base last however long it's been, like 2 months. But there'd always be times where you'd look at him and he'd be like, obviously wondering about like a madman, but now it's like, okay, I'm just going to go forward. I know I can do this. It brings players into it as well. Same as Bruno. When you've got those types of players in the squad, it's fantastic. Yeah. Like Trippier, when you got leaders, I feel like we do have a team of leaders. Yes, there's some youngsters in there, but Sven Botman, 21, doesn't look out of place, and he's controlling the back line. I know when we scored against Southampton, same as I forgot who it was against maybe Brentford, he kicked off because he was like, I don't want to concede, and they conceded, but there's no fear in this team whatsoever. I mean, for myself, I'm a massive pessimist, so I have a teeny tiny bit of fear. But in terms of the players, I don't think so. None whatsoever, to be honest with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and rightfully so. I don't think we have anything to fear. We'll move on to Newcastle. Obviously, we're talking after the game midweek against Palace, where the performance wasn't the best, but there were, I think it was 8 changes from the starting 11, maybe a couple of more. Obviously, we'll come to the lineup in just a couple of minutes, but we're probably expecting 8 changes this week to bring the players back in who maybe didn't start last night. And in terms of injuries from our side, there's only one addition. And I think Eddie Howe, I don't know if he brought this up after the game or before the game in the interview, but it's Ryan Fraser seems to have a little niggle. He's doubtful, so he probably won't feature, which I think that says a lot to why he didn't feature yesterday. Mm-hmm. He was supposed to, looking at the training photos all week, he was in them, he was running around, and then I don't even think he made the start the subs bench last night, if I recall. So there seems to be something again up with him, which is unfortunate because he's kind of coming back from these little niggles and knocks all the time, and he just seems to be setback after setback. But in terms of the rest of the team, obviously we've had the good news today of the 3 Lions going to play for the 3 Lions, the 3 Geordie Lions, and Nick Pope, Kieran Trippier, and Callum Wilson. That news alone must spur those 3 players on at the weekend, Daryl, to give a bit more than what maybe they can do and just go that extra step.
Yeah, absolutely. Contrary to what we were saying before about whether or not it may make them a bit more apprehensive going into the game and maybe trying to protect themselves to a degree. And I was listening before we started recording to ex-Newcastle player Steve Howie, and he was saying that in the past, where if somebody's been selected for a squad, if they then go out in the next game and try to protect themselves to ensure that they play either in the tournament or in the next squad, then that is where they end up getting an injury because they're trying to take extra precaution to protect themselves, where it's easier for them to just be natural, play the game that they've got to play, go about their business as usual, and then they'll be absolutely fine going into a tournament or a squad. And I think that's exactly what we'll see on Saturday from our three. Callum Wilson's been vocal about how his priorities lie. It's Newcastle United first, and then whatever comes as a result of that afterwards. He's been quite vocal about that on the podcast he does with Michael Antonio. And that's exactly what we as fans need to hear. And if he's got that mindset, then Eddie can trust him to go out there and do the job to the best of his abilities without any hesitation that he'll be thinking about something after they've said a lot this season that their focus is the next game. The next game is the focus, and that's exactly what we'll see, no doubt.
Yeah, no doubt at all. And I think for the two players that missed the penalties last night, I think Sven Botman looks like he's already over it. I think it hit Bruno a lot harder than maybe it should have done, but I appreciate that, it has hit him as hard as it has.
Yeah.
Harry, do you think those penalty misses will affect either player come the weekend if they get a start, especially with Bruno? We've seen the photo that didn't make it to Twitter, but it did make it out, the club one, the dressing room one, and he's kind of like, it's kind of like, we won, but I'm absolutely beat up. So yeah, I'll pass the question over to you, Harry. How do you think it'll affect Bruno going at this game?
Bruno, I don't think it will affect him. I think for the talent we've had him, it always seems where if he makes a mistake or if he's kind of misplaced the pass, that spurs him on. I feel like he's the type of player now where he's going to be just constantly focused kind of on the next game and just kind of almost making up for it, but not too much. I think you'll let it pass. Might just give him a bit of like okay, I need to do something next game. And that'll be about it. I can't imagine him bringing it with him. I mean, his run-up was stupid. It was horrific. I mean, yeah, I understand. Obviously, you got like Jorginho, who does a stupid little run-up, and he seems quite successful. Tony and his little five-a-side penalty. But it was just looked a bit strange, a little bit off. Changing your pace on the way to the goal never works for me. Like, just absolutely smack at top corner. But yeah, we'll probably think about it more than he does, to be honest. I mean, I'm not even fussed. I think he'll get over it. And I think the people that he's with, I was saying just before this that when they were going round at the end, everyone was clapping and he was hand on the chest saying sorry to the fans. And Joe Linton kind of grabbed him and just said, like, "Oh, man, like, it's fine, like, relax." And then as soon as he went past the Gallowgate, it was just Bruno. And he says he loves the fans. And if he's getting that from the fans, then that's probably all he needs, to be honest. And I know you'll be in the dressing room and things like that, but it shouldn't affect him. And Botman, it shouldn't affect him either. It was a poor penalty, but he's not a penalty taker. Do you know what I mean? So it's absolutely fine.
So last time Bruno takes advice from Neymar on how to take a penalty, mate. It just looked like he was trying to be Neymar.
I do love the thought of Joe Linton going, "How man?" I really think he probably would eventually. Like when you had Tino back in the days, speaking a little bit of Geordie when he was doing his interviews. I think, let's get Joe Linton speaking full blown Geordie before he gets in the Brazil squad after the World Cup. We'll turn our attention to the lineup. I think it's going to be a pretty easy one, as always. I think it's back to what we know, back to square one. I don't think there'll be many, if any, changes. I think the one thing we might see is Joe Linton comes back in because he was out of the last league game because of suspension. But there is now a question like Jonjo Shelvey. I couldn't see the game yesterday, so I have no idea how well he did. He did start yesterday, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
Yeah. So it's good to see him back. But do you think in that centre midfield there'll be any changes to what we've seen before, Daryl?
I think there might be, but not necessarily like you were hinting with Jonjo Shelvey. I don't think it will necessarily be him. We've had Sean Longstaff now put 2 big 90-minute shifts in already this week. So if anything, he possibly could be the casualty. I would think Joe Linton would probably come in for him, and then you would have your midfield 3 of Joe Linton, Willock, and Bruno. Much like I think they played the midfield against Brentford, I think. And then I would probably, again, because as much as Maxi was playing, he didn't look as fit. He showed signs of being somebody who'd been out injured. So again, it would probably be the front 3 of Murphy, Wilson, and Almiron for me. And the back 5 picks themselves, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Don't even have to mention it.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned about St. Maximum. The pundit on Sky Sports said he looked very rusty. And that's only going to be natural given the amount of games he's missed. Harry, for a starting lineup, obviously we've discussed most of it. When it comes to Alan St. Maximum, is it a case of you bring him on if it's needed? In terms of 60 minutes again, like we discussed last time, or does he get a start over Jacob Murphy, or if Joe Linton's playing out there, Joe Linton?
I agree with Daryl for the midfield. So I think Joe Linton's in the middle. I was thinking about it, and it is harsh on Sean Longstaff, but like Daryl said as well, he's put 2 big shifts in and been up and down the pitch like a madman. So I don't think it would be horrendous if he was to be dropped. But in terms of Maxi, yes, last night he didn't look as good as we know him to be. He looked a bit off it. Of course, there was a few moments of magic that he did, and you're like, oh, right, okay, that's the play that we've been missing with a bit of flair. Yeah. If it was me choosing, I'd want to pick him, but I don't think that's the right decision. I think Murphy has to start, and then bring Maxi on. I think as soon as he spread the game, I think that's Maxi's game. As soon as the game's kind of spread and there's gaps in between, that's when he does well. Because I know that when he came on against who's that we played last? Not Palace. Who was that we just played?
Villa.
That's it. Yeah, was it? Yeah, I can't remember, but when he came on,
it's been a long week.
Immediately they put 2 men on him straight away. Yeah. And they were straight after him, and I think that's the problem. That everyone gets kind of up to grips with that and clues on that now. Where if you put 2 on him, he's going to have to turn back around and pass it. But to be fair to Maxi, usually you try and do like a little turn and get past them and get tackled. But yes, I thought he was a bit more composed. He kind of thought about the progression up the pitch rather than thinking I've got to do it all myself. It was like, right, let's start again, and he turned around and pass it. But I think Murphy starts, and I would really like to see Maxi come on, to be honest. I'd like to see him just get a few more minutes in the Premier League before this break. And then the pre-season, mini pre-season that we have, could be ideal for a player that's just come back from injury to get rid match fitness again.
Yeah, because they are going to Saudi for, it won't be warm weather. It'll probably only be 22, 23, but it'll certainly be warmer than it is in the UK and in Europe at the moment. It's interesting with Maxi because teams they did it kind of towards the end of last season, and they're doing it this season as well. They're putting 2 men on him, or sometimes even 3 men on him when he gets the ball. But now Maxi's passing a lot more than he used to be. That leaves 2 players from our side open, which is great because if he can find that outlet, he can either play a 1-2 and then leave 3 players out the game on the opponent, or he can get the ball to one of our open players and then we've got more of a chance. So it's a double-edged thing because obviously you've got a different player in Jacob Murphy or in Joe Linton to play on that left-hand side who they're going to battle with the ball, but they're not going to have the attention that Maximum brings with the opposition. So it'll be interesting to see what Eddie Howe does because Chelsea are quite a good defensive team. Like they're very well drilled. Obviously they shipped 4 against Brighton, but they very rarely concede a lot of goals. So it'll be interesting to see what he does because if Maxi's on the pitch and they double up on him, then those gaps will appear that we can exploit, and we've got the players who can exploit those. So we'll see what happens. It will be a fascinating watch, I've no doubt. And like I say, you can watch that. It's on Sky, 5:30 on Saturday. It should be a good one. The last game. Is it the last game of the weekend before the World Cup, or is
no? There's a game after that on Saturday night, which I can't remember if it's Arsenal or Liverpool.
Oh yeah, the evening games now. I keep forgetting about those.
There's the Saturday night, late Saturday night game, and then there's 2 on Sunday. I think it's 2. Is it 2? It might be 3. I know Man United Fulham's the late game on the Sunday.
They like to show 3 games on Sunday so they can just have that whole Super Sunday. We're in one stadium, but we'll pretend to care about the other 2 games before that one comes up, as is usually the case. Yeah. We'll move to predictions for Saturday. Harry, I'll stick with you for your predictions first, mate.
Immediately, a score just came in my head, and I don't like myself. I think we'll get beat 1-0. Like immediately, as soon as you said it, I said that I wouldn't be pessimistic and I had that tiny bit of fear, but that tiny bit of fear has ruled everything that I've just said. I think it'll be a tough game. I think if you really look at our last two performances, yes, you can't really talk about the cup because it was a completely changed team. They haven't been fantastic. Now, I can't imagine us, I mean, we're not going to go on a run because we've got the World Cup coming up. I can't imagine us going on a run of poor form, but I feel like I might just sit there slightly. In kind of, obviously, we've had a midweek game, and you got to think Bruno, Trippier, they all came on around 60, 70 minutes, I think. And so I think maybe not tired legs, but I don't want to say it's 1-0, 1-0 Chelsea. It's an awful one to think about. But I really hope we win, obviously. But I think it's 1-0 Chelsea. I can't believe I've said that.
Like we've discussed previously tonight, it wouldn't be the end of the world if it came, because we've got that break to break that any chance of momentum going for a bad form. So, if it's a 1-0 defeat, it's a 1-0 defeat. No worries at all. Daryl, please don't say another defeat.
No, I've had a score in my head, actually probably since the beginning of the week before we even think about what happened last night. And I've just had a little feeling in my head that we might get a 2-1 win. Just to go back on last night, I think as much as we want to imagine Joe Linton saying, "How are you, man?" to Bruno, I have a feeling that Trippier might have just put an arm around him, or he will put an arm around him at some point and say, "Yeah, you missed your penalty. Let's turn it into a performance on Saturday." And I think Bruno will be fired up for Saturday, no doubt. He'll have a point to prove, and he'll want to put a few things right, I think, because of that. And I think he'll have a good game on the Saturday. But yeah, I think it'll be a 2-1 win, and we'll see ourselves into the World Cup, cementing third place. Come on.
There was one thing I wanted to ask, and I don't know if either of you know, but I'll ask for the people watching as well. If you know this, please put it in the comments, because I have no idea what this means. But Bruno put a post on Instagram this morning, that long big thing about, he's scored important penalties, blah, 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 whatever it was. The replies from some of the Newcastle players were crack and then a star, or crack and then a magic wand with a star.
It's a Brazilian thing, isn't it?
What is crack star?
I'm sure Joe Linton.
Because it was Matt Target and it was Miggy Almiron that I saw. So I don't know what the deal is with that. So if anyone knows,
when I translated it on Google Translate.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, go on.
Or might have been on one of the stories. I'm sure it translates to Beatard. I'm not going to say it because I don't want to get the video demonetized, but I'm sure it translates to that. And now I don't understand that. I remember I've done it once. I was like, eh? Like, surely that's not a thing.
Well, at least it's not Jacob Murphy saying meow to Nick Pope.
Yeah, that was another weird one. But yeah, if you know in the comments, if it isn't what Harry said, or if you know what it is, I'm not saying I don't believe you, Harry, but if someone out there
I don't believe myself. I don't believe myself, like, to be honest.
Bruno, if you're watching, leave a comment below. Let me know how we mate, or Almiron or Matty Target. If you're watching this, just I need to know, because it's been doing me head in all day. I have no idea what that means, and I haven't even thought about googling it or anything. I wanted to wait and ask on this show. Anyways, my prediction. I also think Daryl will win 2-1. I think we will go behind first, and I think it'll be an early goal. But I think the crowd will ship us through the rest of that game, and it will be another really good performance. I know we haven't had the best performances the past couple of games, but I think we'll turn that around. I think we're due a really good performance, and I think this will be our send-off, not only for the players, but for the players to the fans, to say we'll be back, and we'll be back like this. Yeah. So yeah, I think 2-1. I think, like you said, we'll cement that third place position. I can't believe I'm saying it. Third place position going into Christmas. But yeah, I think 2-1. I think we'll get revenge over last season. And we'll get revenge very well. And hopefully it'll be Kyle Havertz getting a football in the face from Dan Burn. Not a foot, a football. I hope we whack someone. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Right, lads, does anybody want to add anything before we end for this one?
I would just put in there that I wonder if it could be a performance akin to what we saw against Man City. That bigging it up the way you were there, and I sort of agree with. I do agree with you on that. I think it could be a Man City level performance. I think the players certainly can dig that out one more time before they have a World Cup break or whatever. And I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait.
I really
Yeah,
hope
I mean,
so. I really
there
hope
could be
so,
some
'cause, I mean,
fatigue. There could be fatigue, but we've had 8 players who haven't played yesterday, or they didn't play a full game yesterday, so there shouldn't be fatigue. So we'll see what happens.
No, absolutely. I mean,
Absolutely.
I hope so. I hope so, because when you said there, like, oh, Newcastle can go third into the World Cup, I have just said we'll get beat by a team that's below us. What?
They're in
Chelsea's
seventh.
below us.
They're not just below us.
Seventh.
They're miles below us, Harry. They're in 7th. They're
know,
not even worth
and
the paper
I
to
think
write their names on.
disgraceful,
It's Chelsea. Eh.
And
It
God
is-
knows how many
it's
points
crazy.
behind you are.
I'll stick with me 1-0, like, but the more we're talking, I want to change, but I do
No,
think it'll
don't.
be
Keep it
1-0. But I
balanced.
apologise to people listening if they wanted a positive opinion from me for once, because it's very rare. You're not getting one. Unlucky.
Unlucky indeed. Well, if you don't agree with Harry or you don't agree with anything we've said today, let us know in the comments below. Or if you do agree, let us know as well. It's always nice to hear the feedback. It's always nice to hear your comments in that comment section below. They're always fun to go through, and we do read most of them. No, we read them all. Well, I do, because I have the app to vet them before they go up on the channel, so they definitely go through. If you do like this content, though, please look at becoming a subscriber to the channel. We're on 9,100, so we broke that 9,000 barrier, and we got more very, very quickly. So onwards and upwards with that. So just scroll down from here and hit the subscribe button. And while you're there, hit the thumbs up or thumbs down. That helps feed this channel and this video to other football and Newcastle fans. Will appear on their recommendeds, will appear on their For You lists, will appear everywhere for them if you hit that thumbs up. And if you want to be notified when we release more videos, you can hit the little notification bell and you'll be notified whenever a video goes live on the channel, which is also nice. And one more thing, if you're listening on one of the podcast channels, either Spotify or Apple Podcasts, I think I called it iTunes Podcast last week, and someone who's worked for Apple and worked around Apple for the last 20 years, I should really know the name of Apple Podcasts. Give a 5-star rating or a 4-star rating. It really helps us go up those charts and, again, reach other people who listen to podcasts. And if you want to go one step further and be extra nice, you can also look at becoming a member. It's $2.99 a month. It gets you early access to a lot of the videos that we push out on this channel, as well as access to the Telegram group. And we even might sometimes let you come on a video and discuss your thoughts on an upcoming match or whatever it is, the video that you'll be coming on there. Joe couldn't make it tonight. We did ask him. He was driving apparently and didn't see the tweets. So I think he's reading it now as I'm talking. So hope you got home okay, Joe. And we'll maybe see you in the next one after the World Cup. But that's it for this one. Thank you, Daryl, and thank you, Harry, for joining me as always.
Cheers, Scott. Cheers, Harry.
It is going to be a little break between now and the next match preview. It's probably going to be the Carabao Cup game, because that's before the Premier League. So that'll be week before Christmas, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's before the Boxing Day kickoff. So that'll be when you'll next see a match preview. That doesn't mean that'll not be the last time you'll see us before the World Cup. I'm sure there'll be other videos going on throughout the World Cup that our faces will pop up. And if you like that sort of thing, like I said before, hit the bell icon and you'll be notified when we appear in your feed. But thanks very much for watching. We will see you in the next one. Let's go on. Let's get a win to top off this perfect first half of the season. And then let's see and cheer our lads on in the World Cup. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks very much. Ta-da.
See you later.
See you later.